doomed to get a neck hump.
Got a lot going on. It's Putin and Trump night. I think it's the end of all the wars. I think it's the end of the war on terror. It's Jessica Lange, by the way. Isn't she great? We got a lot going on. I'm having coffee. I'm going to be up till 2 in the morning. I don't give a shit. Today is also the Assumption of Mary. And I'm going to do the 42 pages of Stephen Moran. And somehow this is all going to tie together. I'm not quite sure how, but we'll figure it out. So stick around. So, and then this goes up live. Oh, excuse me, this goes up for free on Substack. For the time being, I'm still doing it on TikTok. Although you always take the risk of being turned off if you say something. And I think it's in September, so we have like a month left. It's official that TikTok will be taken over by someone from the IDF. So that conspiracy is true. Most conspiracies, if you just wait long enough, turn out to be true. So it's a good tune. It's called Age of Machine by Greta Van Fleet. Okay, so there's a lot to do, and obviously the most important, the headline thing today is Trump and Putin, and it's a big machismo fest, right? There's big planes and big tarmacs, and I was a sheep outside, by the way, and F-22 flyovers and yada, yada, yada. And so what I think this is, because I think this is the end of the war. I think this is the end of something that began on 9/11. And just the basic iconography of the war on terror is there was the Twin Towers. I forget the names. That's a thing from King Solomon. It's all Masonic, and that was replaced by the One World Tower. The Twin Towers, One World Tower. It's Hegelian dialectics and all that stuff. It's not really hard to understand this. But I think the war is over. The American police state has begun, and then I think we're witnessing the... Here, let me show you what this is. This is Stephen Moran, the guy that Trump just appointed probably to take over the Federal Reserve. We're looking at the end of the Federal Reserve as we know it. So we're going to get into that. So what does this have to do with women? Okay, well, first of all, we're at the end of this big war. Half of the population of the Ukraine is gone. They either have been exiled, run out of town, in the army. I think the average age in the army is over 45 years old. I'm a guy that's over 45 years old and in pretty good shape. And if you handed me a 22-pound machine gun and said run across that field, I'd say go get fucked, because there's just no way, people. There's just no way. And it's bothered me for... I've had a friend who I sort of had a falling out with. I had a couple falling outs over this war in the Ukraine because it was such a luxury, what do they call it? A luxury liberal war, right? We can have our flags and we can feel good about ourselves and we can blame it on that big bad Putin. And now they're winding the whole thing down with, a big machismo fest in Alaska. And in a way, everybody wins. Putin has won on the battlefield, clearly won. Other than tactical nukes, we wouldn't even really be able to send, a couple, the Marines and some couple 100,000 troops. Putin would just drop a tactical nuclear weapon on it. He says it publicly all the time. He says if we were to lose, if there would be a breakthrough to the Crimea, like Victoria Nuland used to talk about, we would just nuke them. So that's that. But everybody wins. Putin wins. Trump's going to give him some sort of ceasefire, and probably what they're really doing is dividing up the spoils. So I want to start there. I'll refer to who this is in a minute, but just so you know, the real outcome of this is over 4 million people have left the nation of Ukraine, gone primarily to Europe. The entire generation of men are deceased. They're either left or they're deceased. They can't find anybody else. They're going into like people who have Down syndrome and people who are like going into bars and just pulling 50-year-olds off of a bar stool and sending them to the front. Everybody's dead in Ukraine. So this allows all the MSNBC pretty girls who live, outside of DC and have their 3 minutes of hate with Putin, they get to blame the whole thing on Trump. See how this works? It's all sexuality. Putin doesn't like gay people, so the Biden-Obama administration pretty much gets the war started, and then Trump ends it, so he gets to win, he gets the ceasefire, but the Ukrainian people lose. It's not quite Gaza, but it's close. So the reason I'm sitting in front of Jessica Lange's head is because this is Tamara, Queen of the Goths from Titus Andronicus, which is she loses her mind because Titus executes and dismembers one of her sons, and she just loses it. She just goes mad. And then Titus goes mad, and then Titus does the same to her boys and bakes them in a pie and feeds them to her. Like it's just a complete like bloodbath fest. But it is really fun to see Jessica Lange dressed up like this. So, and fucking Anthony Hopkins is just, you can find it on YouTube, by the way. It's not one of Shakespeare's better plays. It was very, very popular, but it's about war and it's about families. And I'm not even going to talk about it, but if you can make a couple cocktails and just force yourself to get through it, and at the end of it, you'll be like, that wasn't like Hamlet or like one of his best plays, but there's something that just gets under your skin about it. So that's what we're doing here tonight, folks. So the big wars are winding down. Trump and Putin were never really going to go to war with each other because they both would drop a tactical nuclear weapon. They both have the personalities that they would do it, right? They're just like, they're almost like, they're different this way though. Like Putin is like a powerful legal scholar. Most people don't know this. He speaks perfect German. He corrects his German, as I always like to point out, he frequently corrects his translator. Okay. Trump can't read a paragraph. Like people would give him like something like this to read, from the Defense Department or the Department of Intelligence or this or the environment or the economy, and he like can't even get through the executive summary. So these are two very different guys. My own personal conspiracy theory is this: we don't really live in a democracy. We don't even really live in an oligarchy. We live in a conspiracy. And I think this is awful. This is like as awful as talking about people getting baked in pies. I think Ukraine was baked in a pie. What I mean is, it was all done to divide up the resources. So what's happening between Putin and Trump right now was the plan all along. It's my own personal conspiracy. I don't think there was any real reality to 33 tanks beating a nation with 14,000 tanks, not 44,000, but 14,000 tanks. We got to do a lot of experimental work with drones and so forth, right? The Defense Department loves that. We got to launder a lot of money. There's just story after story of, it's like 400 billion. Just to be clear, like this war that's ending up in Alaska, it was about almost $500 billion. And it's just part of the $500 billion for Libya and Afghanistan and Iraq and this one and this one and this one and Gaza. They're all the same thing, people. They're all like donuts in the same box. But a lot of that money was laundered. There's lots of stories that a lot of it was supposedly laundered to Death Star, back to the Democratic Party, round and round to the lobby, And there's also lots of rumors of like really ugly stuff that happens. First of all, we have to go through the Victoria Nuland thing again. And she said, because nobody in Congress that knew this, that there were, and it was another time confirmed, like 28 or 29, bio research facilities. Now, just think how dangerous this is. Okay, so I did a whole thing about Yale and Gaza, and you can go watch that. And I want to see if I can sort of make this like friendly to not history buff like machismo guys, but just like sort of a woman's kind of a thing. Like the human cost of this is just unfucking believable. And these fucking pretty girls get on MSNBC with their little dresses and their hair, and they Trump and Putin and Trump. It was Rachel Maddow and Victoria Nuland who set the whole place on fire. And I do want to say some things that go like this. I don't think that women understand what war is. I don't think they understand what happens when you shoot a machine gun into a house. Like the house just disappears. I just don't think you get it. And I think the whole thing, and I'm going to dig into this a little bit deeper, and then this is going to go on as long as the gods of TikTok won't turn me off. That'll go on Substack for free. And what has been done since 9/11 is like watching Titus Andronicus. Like your brain can't even take it in. The horror that America has unleashed on the world in the last 25 years. And now here we are at the end of the horror, where we get the land and the natural resources and the rare earths, and that's what they're making a deal over. Like, it's fucking disgusting, the whole thing. And the Ukrainian people are done. They're like, if I went out in the field and I shot all the male sheep here at my dad's house, we wouldn't have any more sheep in a year, in a couple of years. You know what I mean? If you don't breed, you don't have any more Ukrainians. There's a big theme in this play, if you want to go watch it, about revenge and families. You got to go check it out if you like this kind of stuff. This is why we have a bit of a following, is because we put all these things together. But America's now a police state. Black women walk down the street in Washington, D.C. and hold their kids real close to them so they don't get picked off by the people in the riot gear and with the assault rifles. We're in a full-blown motherfucking police state. That's also part of this big machismo thing that's coming in, right? Like, well, and it's to some degree true. Like, the sort of the leftist feminist people who run these cities haven't been able to clean them up. And, we don't send the Red Cross in to, like, get the people out of the tents, right? We have to show up with, like, these big fucking MRAPs and shit that ran around Iraq. Like, we have to have, like, maximal, completely out of control masculinity. That's what America is. It's a lot like this play. The more I think about it, this is like I was just like, I need some sort of, like warfare woman thing. And then I was like, Jessica Lange from that play. And that's why I put this up. I put it on TikTok. Nobody gave a shit about it. I didn't get anywhere with it. I think it's great. Oh, hold on. I got to play this. And then I was like, whenever I do these, because I don't have a personal account, so I can't play like Led Zeppelin and like easy stuff like that. Like for this, you might play, I don't know, Four Sticks or something like that. Some like esoteric Led Zeppelin piece. So you have to pick from this like pre-packaged music. So I'm going through the thing and I'm like gothic rock or whatever. And as frequently as the case, this is like some Japanese thing, and I just typed in like gothic, I don't know, gothic creepy rock or something. Here's what it is. I think it's great. So, sorry, I hit the button. But when you hear that, just you can go play it. I think it's still up on my TikTok feed. Just play that music through your mind, and just if you can't do it, just picture Gaza. Just picture Bakhmut. Bakhmut and Gaza look exactly the same. Just picture Tripoli, Fallujah, all these cities for the last 25 years. The numbers aren't as bad as Mustache Man in World War II, but the war on terror is, if you covered square mileage, I think the global war on terror, I call it the Great Eurasian War, was really bigger than what Mustache Man conquered, right? We went from Tripoli to Afghanistan and didn't accomplish anything, like didn't get anything, we didn't even get any oil out of it, really. We probably got some shit we don't know about, like rare earths or something like that. But that's my point for you tonight is that the war on terror is a war for a sake of war. That's like a Cormac McCarthy thing. It's like a Blood Meridian thing. Like all we know is war. All we know is we don't even know how to clean up the streets of Washington D.C. the right way. Like we could have like called the Catholic Church or somebody, like nuns or some shit would have come and like taken these people away and given them health care and the Red Cross or like Doctors Without Borders. No, we show up with the fucking MRAPs and the vests and the walkie-talkies and everything is like maximal goddamn violence. That's all we know anymore is America. And that's my point. That's a feedback loop now, people. That's a feedback loop of warfare and women and warfare. That's my theme for you tonight. And I think it creates a mentality like this. And remember about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when they had this thing on TikTok, it was like for a week or two, it was like the meme. It was, what's your Roman Empire? I still use it every day. What's your Roman Empire? And these usually 20 or 30 something women would go in and talk to their boyfriends or their husbands and be like, Tony, how often do you think, like it was a joke, like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And like he's watching football or playing video games or eating potato chips or something, and he goes, every day, or like once a week. And their women would be like, why? What do you think about? And it would usually not have real like academic answers. They would just be like, I don't know, war and civilization and guy stuff. Like, what really happens if like Washington D.C. were to explode in violence? Or Los Angeles, like the cartels and the Marines and the National Guard and the whole fucking thing. Here, I'll give you the answer. We men can't protect you. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're in your house in Santa Monica and like it goes ballistic, goes kinetic, we can't protect you. You end up in Bakhmut. I mean, just imagine the fucking people in Bakhmut. Have you ever seen the video? I mean, it's the same thing in Gaza. Like these just apartment buildings just bombed out for miles and miles and miles. Like, what do you do when the first bomb hits? Who carries grandma over her shoulder? And like, what do you do? Like, Sergey, like, bring the Halusky or something and like fucking walk away? They don't ever show that on MSNBC. Where the fuck did all these people go? Right? So we got two things going on. We got like the big war on terror ending, and we got this like police state happening at home. But underneath it all, Linda pulled out the Linda figure for this. If you like history, this is a lot like Napoleon. You know, the tough guy that comes in to, you know, set the streets, you know, law and order in the streets. A lot like Cromwell. A lot like some of the characters in the Roman Empire, like the famous one, Rienzi, who was like a Napoleon character who didn't last very long. But underneath all these people when this happens is finance. There's a big reset, whether it's caused or affected by this, and we're going through that right now. And if you listen to TikTok, I'm sure you get these like I do. Just one after men, women, where are all the men? These women, gorgeous women, come out of these clubs all dolled up, and like, no one even buys me a drink. No one even approaches me. And like, her girls are around and are like, yeah, what do we do? Why are we even out here? And then guys are like, I've seen the thing, I don't know how many times, 80% of all men between the ages of 25 and 40 are no longer even approaching women or even want a relationship. You just hear this all the time, right, in American society. And a big part of it is the finance. One guy said, like, yeah, if I go out on a date with someone on a weekend, it's $400. If I had a girlfriend, it would be like an extra $400 or $500 a week. Like, we're going to go to brunch, it's $100. We're going to go out for drinks, it's $100. We're going to do this, we're going to go to the theater, it's $100. Here's a factoid for you. Baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials all spend about $30 billion a year on alcohol. You know how much Gen Z spends? 3. That's how, in Western society, like alcohol and like boys and girls go together, right? Clubs and this and that, parties and sororities and fraternities, right? No, it's all changed. So here we are, we've lived through, millennials and Gen Z. They don't know anything but the war on terror, right? They don't know the 1980s. They don't know, like, I don't know, going to listen to Motley Crue at a keg party, and, I knew stories of, like, kids getting pulled over by the cops and they, like, yell at them and, like, make them pour the beer out and drive home. Like, I'm not trying to romanticize that and say people should go start doing that again. I'm just saying, like, now, like, everything is just so much stricter and so much more, I forget who said, but, like, I think it was, who's the kickboxer that everybody hates, Tate or whatever. He's like, yeah, you break up with a girl now, you're going to hear about it on social media for the next 6 months. Back in the day, like in college, if you broke up with a girl and you met her or during the summer or something, you may never see her again. Now it's just like an ongoing, agonizing thing that everybody has to go through. But I wanted to do the finance thing because I wanted to show you behind the bluff and bluster of Trump and the machismo, and I posted Besant, the Treasury Secretary, and you can take it either way. Like, he's sort of making a point, but there's also something absolutely absurd about his point. And he's like, well, China is the world's biggest exporter, and they export more to the United States, and they're a creditor country, and we're a debtor country. And with these tariffs, they have a big problem. You just almost have to, like if you're into the machismo of, like, yeah, we could, and then what's the asshole from O'Leary came on and said we should have 400% tariffs to China, right? Warren Buffett came on very calmly and very quietly, and he said, tariffs are an act of war. Uncle Warren. But I wanted to go through, if you'll indulge me, on the guy who's just been appointed. Trump is just browbeating and threatening to sue Jay Powell because he won't lower interest rates. So I went through all 40-some pages of Stephen Moran's, and I'm not going to read it to you or anything like that. I could probably do this in 90 seconds or 2 minutes. But here's what I want to tell you. Through these wars and Putin and B-2 bombers and Iran and all this shit, The Fed is being sort of wound down. And I think I can prove that to you two ways. The first one is with the Genius Act, and this has always been the theme of Bruno, is that one day, I always go like this, Trump goes like this, Kamala Harris goes like this, I go like this. We're going from the old system, which is based on the Fed and the US dollar and all that happy horse shit, to the new system, which is digital, which is based on primarily Ripple and XRP and runs on blockchain rails. That's it. Okay? Secondarily, BlackRock has even announced, and there's articles on Zero Hedge about it. Everybody's back into crypto and is like, holy shit, the whole financial system's going to run on blockchain rails. The Fed is going to run on blockchain rails. The banking system is going to run on blockchain rails. And the securities industry, and if you know what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to build tokenized funds which allow for social capital engagement, which means the people who put the money in have some influence over how it's invested. But that's a whole nother Guinness. So I went through this thing. So Trump has appointed this guy who was the chairman of the Council on, how do they say it? Economic Advisors. He's now appointed to the Federal Reserve Board, and it's sort of a wink and a nod that that's who's going to replace Powell. So I went back through his 40-page piece, and I've studied it before, but I did it systematically this time to really look at this and be like, what are we looking at here? Like, what are they really? How serious is this? What I'm here to tell you, people, is like we live in a police state. Okay, the war in the Ukraine, complete disaster. Gaza's a disaster. All the wars are a disaster. At the end of all this, I've said it like over and over and over again. There's going to be some big financial restructuring. We didn't really lose the wars, right? We just didn't accomplish anything and now have $36 trillion in debt. I think it just hit $37 trillion. And the deficit's going higher. The big beautiful bill has taken the deficit from about 5%. Under FDR, it was 3% during the Depression. 5%. It's going to 7%. So I read this thing, Hudson Bay Capital, you can go find it yourself. A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System. It's an interesting choice of words, too. What I concluded as I went through this is this isn't really a financial or economic treatise. This is a low-grade form of warfare. Okay? I know I'm all over the fucking place as usual, like the women and war. I'm telling you, people, this is so you don't know that we've been living through a massive global war that has sucked all the excess capital, the capital that makes you feel comfortable, the capital that goes into the next 10 or 20 million homes that we should have built that we didn't build, the capital that goes into people's education so they don't come out when they're 27 years old and have a $700 payment to their fucking student loans. We didn't invest the capital in normal shit. We invested it in warfare. And I'm the only guy on the internet that says this. I think I say I beat this drum more than Dr. Jeffrey Sachs. I think I beat it more than Chris Hedges. I think I beat it more than Abby Hoffman. Not Abby Hoffman. What's her name? Abby Martin. And as I went through this, I was like, this isn't even really an economic plan. Let me try to put that out there for you. But like Besant, they all have like this machismo, like, we borrow money to buy trillions of dollars worth of shit from China. China has a real problem. It's like, okay. And that's what this is like reading. It starts off by saying the root of economic imbalances lies in the persistent dollar overvaluation. Okay, that's the second paragraph. We are on the cusp of a generational change in the international trade and financial systems. So right out of the gate, the problem is overvaluation of the dollar, because everybody's using the dollar sort of like everybody uses American Express or something like that. So everybody accumulates dollars, all the oil's traded in dollars, all the grain's traded in dollars, all the cars are paid for in dollars, everything going in and out of China is paid for in dollars, etc., etc. We all sort of know this. It used to be called the petrodollar. And then you get all these people on here that talk about crypto and everything, say the dollar's going to collapse and Bitcoin's going to go to $1 zillion. And that's not the way to look at this. So you have to take a little bit of time and you got to think these things through. But so they come right out of the gate and they say overvaluation. And we all know Trump is the tariff guy, right? And China, China's ripping us off. Mexico's ripping us off. Everybody's ripping us off. Over 70% of all the money invested in the fucking world came back to the United States in 2023. So we buy all this stuff from people who are ripping us off, and then they send the money back to us. Okay? 73% of all the money invested in the world was invested in the United States in 2023. Okay, so that's your baseline. We're working with that. Okay. Okay. And this reminds me of like Condoleezza Rice and Dick Cheney and who's the guy with the mustache who says we should go to war, Bolton, and all these fucking neocon people that, right, we've all seen them on TV since 9/11. They're all like, or even Bibi, like if you just take out Iraq, terrorism will disappear. This is how this guy talks. It's just these statements that this is the facts. Even if I'm wrong, this is still the facts. Okay. So paragraph 3 starts, tariffs provide revenue and if offset by currency adjustments present minimal inflationary side effects. So he goes on for like 5 pages and explains to you that tariffs will undoubtedly increase the value of the dollar. But we started this whole project off we started this whole thing off by saying that the problem is the overvaluation of the dollar. You feeling me? Okay. There's probably 10 highlights that I'm going to seek out and throw at you. Chapter 2, the roots of the economic discontent lie in the dollar. Manufacturing employment, da-da-da-da-da. We've heard this from Trump for like 10 years, right? Okay. The demand for the reserve asset leads to significant currency overvaluation and real economic consequences. And just back to my women's theme and everything. Having the reserve currency is why you can jump in an SUV and drive to a fucking mall and buy shit from overseas for like nothing. Okay, we've gone since I was born in 1970, we've gone from 37% of world GDP to about 27%. Of the 12 trillion in foreign reserves, 60% are still allocated in dollars. Okay, now here's where it gets good, folks. This connection helps the reserve currency and the overvaluation of the dollar. This connection helps explain why President Trump views other nations as taking advantage of America in both defense and trade simultaneously. The defense umbrella and our trade deficits are linked through the currency. Okay, it's building up here, huh? President Trump has emphasized that the value he places on its status as the global reserve currency and has threatened to punish countries that move away from the dollar. I expect this tension to be resolved by policies that aim to preserve the status of the dollar, but improve burden sharing with our trading partners. So what this isn't really like we're going to use tariffs and like change the economics. It's all threats. It's a kind of like economic warfare. And what I'm trying to explain to you, that because we've been at war for 25 years, right? Germany didn't like spend all this fucking money like murdering people in the desert. We did. And now, so this isn't like an economic treatise. This is like in the middle of the war, Ukraine, Gaza, and this and that and the other thing. This is don't fuck with us. This is like the end of a mob movie where the mafia boss is in trouble. You feeling me? So these tariffs, this bizarre chaos of all these tariffs, it really, I mean, like, there's not, like, Audi isn't selling any fucking Audis in the United States right now, okay? What it really is we're restructuring the Fed, but don't get cute. And the idea, hold on, you'll see. The idea is here, we could we could point out one nation and just unload tariffs on them and just destroy their economy. Now, we can't do it to everybody. You can't put 100% of tariffs on the whole world, because then, like, world trade collapses, our standing in the world collapses, and blah, blah, blah. But the idea here is, see, it all fits together, if you get the joke. Like, the police state, the thing with Putin, this is Trump's coming in because we are in a situation that is this delicate. Now, you can think that this is all, like, that Trump stayed up at night and came up with all this. I think that's rather naive. Or there's people behind the scenes that really control the world. I'm going to start using this phrase, the owners and controllers of globalized financial capital. Shahid Bolton, King Bolton came up with that. It's a good one-liner. In other words, the people behind the Fed are getting off the Fed and getting on to Ripple. I think the same people who control the Fed control Ripple. Just my own late night, staring at the ceiling kind of conclusion. But this paper is a big, like, don't fuck with us just because we're in trouble. That's what this is. And that's why Trump is so perfect for this, right? Because he's that way, like, at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's, like, ready to fire off a tweet somewhere. And so he's going to wind down the war with Putin. They're going to divide up the resources that belong to the Ukrainian people, which no longer belong to the Ukrainian people, because that was always the plan of Rachel Maddow and Joe Biden and Barack Obama. And not them, it's not them. They're just the face of the policy. I mean, all along they were going to say they're going to turn over Ukraine to BlackRock. If you're a historical person, this is just like the British East India Trading Company. There's no difference. Okay, we threaten to punish. You get that point. He goes on, paragraph after paragraph, and says, look, in the first Trump administration, we put on tariffs and the dollar went up because everything that's happened during the war on terror, anytime there's stress, confusion, warfare, Assad, whatever, the dollar goes up. Hold on. And therefore, the tariffs will offset any inflation because the dollar will go up. But hold on, didn't we start this project by saying the dollar's overvalued? So we're going to do tariffs, which are going to cause the dollar to go up. See, there's no logical economic plan here. This is a series of threats. Moreover, the totality of tax reform, deregulation, and energy abundance can serve as meaningful disinflationary drivers that smother any incipient inflationary impulses. It is quite possible that even with substantial tariffs, the Trump administration policy is overall disinflationary. Now, this is probably the moment when I have to point out that they just fired the head of the BLS, who ratcheted down the total number of jobs by almost like 1 million, okay? At the same time, the stock market is just completely in wacko retail meme stock freak show land, but the super core inflation, okay, came out in like this, like I don't know, if it's 3.5. Whenever they want it to get like down to 2%, it just never quite goes there. It just like it hits 3 and then it just creeps back up. This isn't hard, and this is why I'm tying this into boys and girls. Because there's been nothing done on housing. What do we do for housing? We just have more private equity firms buy up more and more houses. We're consuming ourselves. We're literally feeding our kids in the baked pies to private equity companies. I can't believe I just came up with that because I didn't expect to like be talking about Titus Andronicus in the middle of this fucking economic thing, but it works. We're eating our children. We're eating our children. These problems, Trump is right. You need oil, you go fucking drill for oil. You need eggs, you get more chickens. Okay, this isn't hard. It's supply and demand. Nobody can ever refute that. Boom, done. It's housing, right? You can't get young people to show up to be welders, to be plumbers, to work with their hands. They get muddy, to get up at 6 a.m, have to take a piss test, and they have to do this. And this is what makes the world go round. You need men to do men shit. Okay? No, Rachel Maddow doesn't talk about this. Rachel Maddow talks about that's toxic. Anybody in a pickup truck with a pair of boots on is toxic masculinity. And we are suffering the geopolitical and domestic fallout from that. From like this warfare of men against women. You feel me? Now, here's the chart that our friend Stefan gives us. Hold on, I know you can't see it. And there's only 2 columns. There's tariffs will either cause a quote, perfect currency offset, which means like you tariff 10% and the currency goes up 10%, and therefore you don't see it. You go to Walmart and you can buy a fan, and the tariff is 10%, but the dollar's up, so the fan's the same price. There's another column that says no currency offset. There's not a column that says what the fuck happens if we tariff and the dollar goes down, which is what's happened. The fucking dollar's down 11%. And now, like, Trump is threatening again, back to this toxic masculinity, out of control, chest pumping masculinity. Like, he's going to sue Jay Powell. Well, the fucking currency is already down 11%. And if America looks like a freak show, as they wind down this Fed thing into some sort of blockchain thing that I've been talking about for 4 years, if they turn this into some sort of Benito Mussolini freak show where he's going to like send, I don't know, the Marines into the Federal Reserve building. And did you see that goofy thing that he's like walking around the Fed with Jay Powell and says, yeah, and your budget here was $1 billion over budget. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? The Federal Reserve can print $3 billion like in 15 minutes and nobody would even know. It's all show, people. It's all like, it's Titus Andronicus. It's like The Matrix. I don't like that. The Matrix isn't a good, probably The Hunger Games is a better example. This is all President Snow shit. But hold on, it gets worse. By contrast, Trump has expressed a desire to take steps to aggressively deregulate portions of the economy. Okay, all right, we get it. Now, here's Besant. Countries that want to be inside the defense umbrella must also be inside the fair trade umbrella. See, people were at the end of the war. We can't even protect Europe anymore. It's over. The wars are over. It's the financial engine can't hold it up anymore. That's why they're in Alaska. Don't get all worked up about the planes and the this, and they shook hands this way and that way. It's fucking over, people. The financial system of America and the world cannot take any more of this. And back to Gaza, I don't think that I think it's more women than men. Like, this is why I'm doing this thing with Jessica Lange behind me. I think Gaza is like the thing that people are just like, fuck everything. The numbers, this, Putin, the global warming, like, what in the fuck is going, but see, that's the thing. The warfare, the violence, the trauma is what they always have to bring back onto television. So you never feel settled. Because if you never feel settled, you never want to feel settled, right? I mean, I don't know a lot about how this trauma kind of a thing, but this is, and I think it comes out on women more than men, right? Men are sort of supposed to deal with trauma. Like, there's a ice storm, and there's a bunch of men jump in a bunch of trucks and climb up the wires and fix it, and everybody just says fine. And I think that's why Trump is the president, right? To just terrorize women, to make them feel like it's hopeless, like there's just big vehicles going to ride around our cities and attack it. Yeah, that's part of the plan. And that's exactly right. And the rest of the world is not on board with us. So, back to this. Countries that want to be in the defense umbrella must all be also in the fair trade umbrella. Threatening our allies. What allies we have left. With respect to other nations, this is page 26, the Trump administration merges national security and trade policy explicitly. See, this isn't about finance, people. This is the end of a war. I'm repeating myself, but I think I have to. Oh, this one was really quite fun. The risk will be somewhat compounded if inflation remains elevated, which just came out in the numbers. As discussed in the section on tariffs, the result in Gopinath 2015 research indicates a 20% depreciation of the dollar would boost CPI inflation by 60 to 100 basis points. Digression here. This is the thing about inflation that no economist will ever admit. Nobody fucking controls inflation because it's psychology. A one-time adjustment in the currency without second-round effects should be looked through by the Fed as a price level rather than an inflation rate shift. However, if the Fed believed that to persistently shift the rate of inflation, everybody always thinks they can control the inflation. In Germany, it was like this. It was 8%, it was 11%, it was 14%, it was 18%, and then it was 28%, and then it was 40, and then the graph goes like this. And there's always some asshole who read some books who thinks that they have control over the magic money printer. Okay. It's really actually hard for me to believe that this guy was allowed to write this and publish it. But, just stop for a minute. J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, like these masterminds of finance, right? Up and down the East Coast, the tech bro billionaires, all these fucking people. When you listen to these next three things I read to you, they all signed off on this. Nobody came out and said this is crazy, because they all need it to happen. The dollar has to be protected at the same time that we keep interest rates down, but the only way to really do that is to print money if it gets out of control. They don't have a fucking plan, people. The Mar-a-Lago Accords. Security zones are a public good, and countries on the inside must fund it by buying treasuries. Security zones are a capital good. They are best funded by century bonds, not short-term bills. Hold on. You got to hold that one in mind. Security zones have barbed wires. Unless you swap your fucking bills for bonds, tariffs will keep you out. I added the F word. Like this is like right at, this is like Tom Hagen going to see the guy at MGM, and it's like after the Godfather asked for the first, the first favor, he never asked for a second. The century bonds. Do you understand what the century bonds are? If you fuck with us, if you like sell your reserves aggressively, we will we will default on you individually. So Trump's, Europe and Scandinavia, J.D. Vance and all these people, and they're all going around the world like this and have these little showy events, including the one in Alaska right now. And the underlying published theme is, if you fuck with us, we will transact all of your U.S. treasuries into 100-year IOUs that don't pay any fucking interest. Excuse me. Okay, then we get into the Treasury Exchange Stabilization Fund. That's a whole thing right there. That came out of World War II, came out of the Depression actually. It was funded by gold from the Pacific in World War II. That's it's literally the CIA and the U.S. Treasury's slush fund. Okay, now he points out that and this is what the president has done, he's used the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Now just sit there for a minute and take that at face value. The Trump administration has admitted that we are in an international economic emergency. That's what this paper is about. That's what Trump is about. We are in an economic emergency, and it has to do with the U.S. dollar and the Federal Reserve. One way of doing this is to pose a user fee on foreign official holders of Treasury securities, for instance, just withholding a portion of the fucking interest payments. Oh, we go to the Middle East, and we need money to build our Stargate thing in Texas, and we shake you down for $100 billion, and we go, no, we want $200 billion, and they just go, all right. What if we stop making interest payments on the $300 billion you have in your sovereign wealth fund? That's how this works, people. That's how crazy this is. But this is my favorite. This is why I decided to do this. I'm going to try to finish this in an hour, which I got 8 minutes. Let's see. Yeah, I only got a couple of 8. I got 2 more things for you. Now, the Gold Reserve Act authorizes the Secretary of the Treasury to sell gold in a way the Secretary considers most advantageous to the public interest, providing additional potential funds for building foreign exchange reserves. However, the Secretary is statutorily required to use those proceeds for such sale for, quote, the sole purpose of reducing the national debt. While this is probably statutorily permissible, selling national gold reserves to buy foreign exchange instruments could be politically corrupt. They're talking about selling the fucking gold, people. Not to go to Mars or something, to buy foreign exchange reserves, to buy foreign currencies, all of which suck, or foreign bonds, with the idea that they'll have a higher rate of return. They're talking about selling the gold. This is big nationalistic flag waving guy driving MRAPs up and down Pennsylvania fucking Avenue is talking about selling off the fucking gold. I'm telling you, people, the Federal Reserve is being restructured. I did a thing. You can go hit my little 6 flickety dick thing and it'll bring up the most popular things. And I was 2 years before the election, I was like, 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 2 I think Trump might just take over the U.S. Treasury. I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. I was just like, his personality, he could just sort of like take things. That's exactly what this paper is. And then I said, I could see him taking over the Fed with the idea that the people who run the Fed want him to be the man on the thing. Like the guy who Trump put as his economic advisor in the first administration. What was his name? He's a Rothschild private equity guy. It'll come to me. Like he's done big things with like steel mills and coal miners and like these big massive restructurings. I can't remember his name. It'll come to me in a second. That's who Trump is. Trump is just the big blundering guy with the red tie on, sending out goofy tweets and shit and bombing mountains in Iran because this is so bad. I'm not calling for the collapse or anything. I'm just telling you, when you look at this, this really is a complete restructuring of the American system. Like everybody who's looked into crypto is like, I think the whole thing's going to transition to blockchain. Still, because gold pays no interest, selling it for a positively yielding foreign debt should result in income for the U.S. government. just take that like it's you're going to sell the gold to buy some fucking bond from like Italy or some shit, making like 2%. It's how desperate they are. It's how desperate this situation is. That's why we now live in a police state. You're going to see MRAPs roll up and down your hometown. And you can roll up and down your hometown. And you can play your hometown. And the last sentence is, if the weak dollar policy, because that's what this is all about, how do we get a weak dollar without blowing up the world? In a time of quiescent inflationary pressures, when an increase in the money supply is not a concern for monetary policymakers, then there is scope for reduced sterilization, which is an argument for printing money. What he just said there is if it's really not that bad, we can just print money and we don't even have to sterilize it. Last sentence. Again, so much will depend on the economic environment in which such a policy is adopted, to which I wrote with my highlighter, fuck around and find out. This is a paper that says, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. We're just going to like threaten people and fuck around with tariffs and see how it all works out. So that was a somewhat painful but necessary explanation of how terrible the situation we've left to our children. Because we didn't transition off the Cold War into the peace dividend and maybe pay. Remember, we paid down the debt there for a little while under Clinton. Here's something to think about. Just whenever I get lost, like if you're in like a cocktail party conversation, or like I always say, Uncle Bob, Mr. MAGA is like in an argument with like your lesbian niece or whatever, I'm being, and just say, what would have happened if they would have just raised interest rates, short-term interest rates to 5% in 1995 and never moved them? What do you mean? If you think about our lifestyle, like lifetime, Gen X, right? So we came out of the junk bond thing in 1987, the 25% sell-off. It ended up being 20% in a day, and da-da-da, and the savings and loan thing, 1,100 people went to jail, and there was a bad recession, like in the grunge thing when we all came out of college. Remember all this? And remember, there's slacker culture, and everybody's in flannel, like sleeping on their buddies' fucking bean bags and stuff. And then the economy like picks up a little bit of steam, and like the tech thing takes off again, and there's Windows 95, and then Greenspan has his irrational exuberance speech. Remember that? If you're in my business, if you're in investment, this is all like, talking about the Steelers in the 70s or something. And then Greenspan just says, fuck it. The Fed became the thing that was made to make asset prices go higher. And what I would have, I'll wind this down, I'll get this done right at 9 o'clock. If you're my age, you remember the irrational, exuberant speech. They're talking about selling off the fucking gold.